Signs your business has hit a growth ceiling. So, my name is Kathleen Parsons, and I am a scalable offer architect, and I help female entrepreneurs use their one to one expertise to create scalable offers in their business. So, how do you know you've hit this ceiling? Well, the first most obvious one is you are fully booked. So, your calendar is literally full to the brim. You cannot fit any more clients in there, you physically can't fit any more in there, and you just don't have any time to do anything else. That is literally the first sign that you've hit this ceiling, and this is probably the most common sign that people notice that they are fully booked, but there are other ones as well. The second one is that revenue is tied to your hours. So a lot of us know this in reality, that if basically our money is tied to the hours we work, that is what revenue tied to hours means. So if we don't work, we don't get paid, right? Most of us know this in terms of practical, logical sense, but I think a lot of us forget it and just become used to the fact that revenue tied to hours is the second one that you've hit the ceiling in your business. The third one is, might seem obvious again, but I think a lot of us forget about it, is we can't scale. So we end up stuck in this working hours for money, and we sort of just sit in this same income bracket, same time bracket, just same sort of level in our business. So we might be working 20, 30, 40 hours a week, whatever it is you're doing of client work, and you just stay stuck at that, earning 10, 20, 30, 40k a month, whatever you're earning, but we don't scale and move anywhere, and we end up just stuck, and our business almost just hits what is also called an income ceiling, which probably most of you've heard of more than the overall business ceiling, is where we just hit this point where we cannot earn any more money than what we're already earning. So it becomes a case of we're just stuck and we're not scaling the business. And the last one that people probably don't think about until we hit it, it's something that I certainly didn't think about when I started out in business, is exhaustion. So prior to owning a business, prior to being a VA, which was my first business, I worked in care. I worked in the ambulance service for a time. So I thought I knew what exhaustion was. And I did know what physical exhaustion was. Obviously, it was a very physically and mentally draining job, particularly in the care home. I was working with people with dementia, with mental illness. It was exhausting. But I knew that going into it. I knew what to expect going into that line of work. And I think when you start a business, because it's all portrayed online of, oh, just do this and do that and you'll earn money in your sleep, and you see all these people driving Lamborghinis and Ferraris, and you see this life of them on beaches everywhere doing whatever the hell that they want with their time and working only 1 hour a day and all this shit. Let's face it, most of it is. We don't think about the exhaustion that comes with having a business, particularly in the first 2-3 years of business when you are building. There's a lot of exhaustion around time for energy. We are working and losing energy. Okay, every hour that we work, we lose energy for it because we are working a lot of hours and for not a lot of money to start. In the first year, for a lot of businesses, there isn't a lot of income and particularly profit coming in. That's perfectly normal. But then we hit where most of you lot will be in the next stage of exhaustion, where we've gone out of that initial building, we've built something really, really strong in terms of we've got a generally predictable way of clients coming in, of getting leads, of converting people, knowing what people need to hear in terms of our marketing, knowing what they need to hear on discovery calls so that we can take them on as clients, knowing the types of people we want to work with, having this really clearly defined offer. But now we hit a new level of exhaustion, because our level of exhaustion is now based on the fact that we are doing too many hours of work. Rather than doing, the small, maybe 4 or 5 hours a week client work we were doing in the beginning when we were just starting to get going, we're now doing 20, 30, 40 hours, 20 of client work a week. And it's a lot. And I think there's not much emphasis and much talked about online that actually doing 40 hours of client work a week, of physical being on calls for an hour, is 10 times more exhausting than any job. And it is. And it's not me trying to make out that having a job is easier, but in terms of predictability, it is. In terms of 90% of jobs, let's face it, yes, unless you're working as somebody who is working in, say, the emergency room at A&E, and you're on your feet all day and you don't stop. In terms of working in care like I did, it was a non-stop job. There are not many jobs out there where you go to work at 7-8 o'clock in the morning, work till 11 o'clock at night, for example, and you don't stop that whole time. There isn't many jobs out there. Most of them you're getting a break at some point, or you've done your work and then you're waiting for the next task to come from your boss, or you've done what you need to do for that day and you can relax for a bit and maybe catch up on some other stuff you need to do, like you need to tidy your computer, you need to sort your desk out. You know, there's not many jobs are very, very full on mentally and physically for the whole time. And that's not disputing that there aren't jobs out there. I've been in them. But there are jobs that generally, most of them, we're not on it 24/7. There are periods of time where our brain gets a rest, or our body gets a physical rest. In business, when we are doing like 40 hours of client work a week, we generally don't rest, because it isn't just 40 hours of client work a week. It's sometimes the prep that comes beforehand, it's the follow-up that comes afterwards, it's the meshing in between when clients need support. Generally, we don't just do an hour's coaching, mentoring, whatever a week, whatever you do with your clients. There is support in between on Voxer or WhatsApp. So it isn't just 40 hours a week. And then on top of the 40 hours a week, you've got all the hours you're spending marketing, doing advertising, potentially doing things like Facebook ads. You might be doing Google ads. It's all the other stuff that we're doing in the back end of the business as well. The tech, the setting up of things, the making sure people have booked in okay, that they're getting their emails, that they're getting everything they need, as well as just doing the client calls. We don't just get clients and then just show up on a one-to-one call and then just disappear and wait for the next one-to-one call. It doesn't work like that, because there's always some bits in between. So we're not just working 40 hours of client work a week, we're probably working 80 plus hours a week. Let's face it, most entrepreneurs do when they're in the early stages, and when we're doing the one-to-one work, a lot of us work around the 8 hours a week, unless we choose to cap the one-to-one. That's obviously a choice on us, but a lot of people just keep taking on clients because we feel obliged to. We love what we do, and we end up working like 15 hours a day. So we don't think about the overwhelm, which then will lead to burnout. Our bodies can only take so much mentally, physically, emotionally. Even if you've got quite a high threshold for emotional resilience, like, if you are neurodivergent like me, if you have ADHD, our overwhelm comes up quicker. So I've had to set up my business in a way where I have systems in place and I have ways that reduce my level of overwhelm, because I know I will hit overwhelm a lot quicker than a neurotypical person generally. And that's not stereotyping, it is a general thing. But even if you are not neurodivergent and you don't have ADHD or autism or some other condition that drains your energy more, you are still going to hit a limit at some point. You are still going to hit an exhaustion limit. And if you don't watch it, it very quickly leads into burnout. And when you get into burnout, it is very difficult then to recover. Doesn't mean you can't, but it's harder to come back once you are completely burnt out, completely exhausted. Your body is mentally, emotionally, and physically depleted. To then try to scale your business from there is very difficult when you're coming from that place. So keep an eye on your exhaustion levels and just really look at, right, if you're getting to the point where you are starting to max out and you are doing 25, 30 hours of client calls and you're starting to hit your limit, that's when the point of when you would start to look at doing this. So they're all the signs and ways of knowing you're hitting your growth ceiling. And then it's about knowing when to do the scalable offer. And this introduces the concept of leverage. So leverage is where your money and your time isn't entirely tied to you physically doing the work. So leverage doesn't mean you don't do work. It doesn't mean there's any less work. It means you are still going to have to work, but it's working in a different way. So it's not trading time for money in the same concept as one-to-one. So for example, and I talk about all the different types of scalable offers on my channel, so you can go through and find other videos. But just briefly, this is where you would be creating your scalable offer of usually a group program, a membership, or a course. And the difference between a group program and a course, if people aren't sure, just briefly, is a course is something you have pre-recorded and it's something that people work through, whether that is on their own or whether you offer some kind of accountability Q&A along with it, or it's just an evergreen course that you just sell, they buy the course, they work through it in their time. Whereas a group program is usually where you physically do the training every single week, you deliver it live, and then there's usually some form of Q&A element to it as well. And you can have a hybrid of the two, where your course may be pre-recorded, but you still do some live element each week and Q&A. So there is, it isn't all just everything fits in a box. There can be variations. And a membership is obviously a community-based generally. It doesn't have to be. There are different types of memberships, but it's either subscription-based, where you provide a physical product, or some kind of physical set of video trainings every month, but you're not physically there. The community-based, where you bring your people together, you do live trainings yourself, you might have guest experts coming in, you may be doing masterminding in there, or there are some memberships out there where it's just all pre-recorded content and people just come in to basically binge on all the content in there. So I was once part of a tech membership when I was a VA, learning all the different tech systems, and I just literally went in and there was just about 80 different trains on different tech platforms, and I just went through and learned what I needed. So there are different types of memberships, but they're generally the three types of scalable offers that most people go for in their business. And these all allow you to have what's called leverage. When you do a group program or a course, but a group program, some kind of live element, let's say, you are going to be coaching 10, 20, could be 100 people in an hour versus one. Now, obviously, that looks different. You're not going to be able to physically do the same level of coaching you do one-to-one. But that's why your one-to-one offer is generally your most expensive premium offer. In a group setting, you are allowing either people to have questions to ask. And again, there might be 100 people on a call, but not everybody's going to want to ask a question every single call. Or they may all be given right, you've got 3 minutes, 5 minutes, ask your question, and that's it. Or you're getting on live doing some kind of coaching element, learning or something with them. They have the ability to maybe ask questions in the chat that you go through, but you're doing some kind of teaching live to a group of people. So instead of earning £100 for one person 1 hour, you could be earning the equivalent of £100 for 100 people, but you're still only doing it for an hour. So you're earning 10,000, is it, for an hour's work, and you're only doing it once for an hour rather than having to just do it for one person. So it will look different. And as I said, I've got tons of videos on here explaining more about the types of scalable offers, but that's just in brief, and that's the leverage concept. And that is what you want in your business. You want leverage. If you want to be able to go out there and spend more time with your children, maybe hiring a cleaner, hiring a cook, going out on days out more, traveling, seeing your family more, doing hobbies, your business needs to be leveraged. It needs to be set up that it fits around your lifestyle. And unfortunately, one-to-one has a ceiling. You can only do it for so long. It can only grow so far. It cannot scale because it involves you being physically there to deliver the work. So that is the leverage concept. So that's all for the video today. If you would like to know where your business is at in terms of creating your scalable offer, should you start now, then I have a quiz. It is a pretty free to take quiz. It's called the Capacity Check Quiz, and it literally looks at your physical capacity in your business right now. And at the end of it, you will basically get one of 4 quiz results, which will explain in the results exactly where your business is at and what your next steps are in your business. If you'd like to take that, there is a link below this video for you to click, and there's also a link over on my channel and on all the other videos that I have, so you should be able to find the link easily. If you ever don't, then feel free to just pop a comment here and let me know, but you should be able to find the link easily, fill out that quiz and let me know what your result is.